going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN right here on Game Plus Network, live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. I know we've gone a little bit later than we normally do, streaming from our FTN Network YouTube page, so I apologize for that, but I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me here today. If you can smash the like button, rate, review, subscribe on iTunes and Spotify, then I will owe you a couple picks, which I'll share with you towards the end of the show. 10 games on the ice tonight in the NHL. A lot of action. I got some props, some shot props, call some goals, some point props, things like that. Yesterday went pretty well. Pretty happy with how things went on this show in terms of hockey. Matty Berniers, we had him for an anytime point and for him to score a goal. And we got lucky. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of luck on your side. He did have a point early on in the game, but he did score an empty net goal as the Kraken had their way with the Montreal Canadiens last night. 4-0. Are the Kraken going to make the playoffs? They might. Anybody that was on the Kraken last night may have cracked open a bottle of Kraken. I know I did, but bats. I'm not as hungover today as our guy George. It was his birthday yesterday, and I didn't even wish him a happy birthday on the show. Not very friendly of me. So happy belated to our guy, George, who always makes this show look so darn good. And we're off. Last night, men versus boys, that college football championship game. I mean, my goodness, that was over before it started. I can't believe I thought that TCU could potentially cover, maybe a backdoor cover. That was an absolute blow. Boys were eating chicken wings during the game. Did anyone see that? They're eating chicken wings during the game. Some of the players. It was a no contest. Georgia had their way. They crushed TCU. A lot of talk about TCU. Shouldn't have been there. Bama there. I mean, TCU had a really good season. I think they deserve to be there. They're a super long shot, of course, 200-1 to win the national championship before the season started. I think when they look back at the season, they'll be pretty happy with what they accomplished. But Kirby Smart and this Georgia Bulldogs team, man, back-to-back, first team to do it since Alabama in 2010, 2011, 15-0. Third FBS squad in the modern era to go 15-0. And Stetson Bennett, did you guys hear that he's older than the game of baseball? Did you guys hear that? I mean, they wouldn't stop talking about his age last night on the broadcast. Yeah, he's older than Jalen Hurts. He's older than Justin Herbert. He's older than a lot of people. He's an old dude. But he's had a heck of a college career. This is from Bleacher Report. 29-3 record, two-time CFP national champion, two-time CFP national champion, offensive MVP, one Heisman finalist, one SEC champ, one all SEC. Not bad for Mr. Bennett, who got it done last night, and Georgia cruised last night. We do have a lot to talk about. We're going to dive again a little bit deeper into some of the playoff matchups, 6 matchups happening this week. We have a couple on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will play on Monday. All rematches from earlier in the season as well. So we'll dive a little bit deeper. We do have some guests lined up a little bit later on. Not today, later on in the week to dive into some of these games as well. Because you can only get my take. You don't need my take more than once. You may get it a couple times this week, but you certainly don't need it more than once. But hopefully week 18 was good and we can carry over to what is week 19. It is Super Wildcard Weekend, and it is happening this Saturday. Some news before we got on. Carlos Correa signed with his third baseball team this offseason. The San Francisco Giants, they got cold feet, kind of backed out. Don't blame them. 13 years, Carlos Correa, don't blame them. Then it looked like he was going to the Mets, and the Mets are spending all this money left, right, and center. Listen, Carlos Correa is a nice player. I got his Fangraphs page up here right now. He's actually been one of my faves, for quite some time. Like when he as a rookie, I really liked him. He was a guy that touched a lot of categories. His rookie season, 2015, he stole 14 bags, hit 22 bombs, hit 279, didn't strike out a lot, had a double-digit walk rate. Just a really good player, a nice glove. And then we saw like another campaign after that, 20 homers, 13 stolen bases, hit 274, walked more, struck out a little bit more, but, his his walk percentage, his on base percentage was a little bit higher. And then we really started like, is this guy going to be an elite shortstop in fantasy baseball in real life? And then the injuries kind of started to pile up. So the past 2 years, he has been healthy. 590 plate appearances with the Twins last year, 22 bombs, but the speed has completely gone away. He doesn't have a stolen base since 2019, and he only has 6 stolen bases since 2017. That's a span of 3 seasons. A lot of injury plagued seasons, I think, has a lot to do with it. Albert, hello. Welcome in to Mean Streets. Carlos Correa is going back to Minnesota. According to Jeff Passan, he just signed a 6-year, $200 million contract with his former squad. So, I mean, not bad, right? I mean, he doesn't get the money in the years that he thought he was going to get originally, but I don't blame some of these teams. I mean, it's 13 years is just a long time for a guy that's 28 and has only had 2, 3, I guess we can call last season a full season. They played 136 games, right? I mean, it's clearly not a full season, but it's pretty close. I mean, he's only played more than 140 games twice in his MLB career. That rookie campaign, he only played 99 games. So injuries have kind of plagued him. Where does he fit into the shortstop rankings? For me, he's definitely outside the top 10. I mean, there's a lot of good shortstops in fantasy baseball that come with a lot of speed. So I think Correa is a fine player. I think he can probably hit 270, hit 20 bombs. But again, he's not going to steal you any bags. The team in Minnesota is okay. It's not bad. It's kind of the past couple of years have been like 3 years ago, they were one of the better offensive teams in baseball. But the past couple of years, they've just been like a mediocre offense. But they do have some good guys inside that lineup, but nowhere near a top 10 shortstop for me. Tyler, I don't know if you have the baseball ADPs, but we don't need to bring it up. But we will look at this guy. We will talk some baseball here a lot more as we get into pitchers and catchers. I mean, they're just a handful of days from reporting. As soon as we get through the month of January and we get into February, we're going to be right there. But you see here, this is how the first round is shaping up in high stakes leagues, NFBC. Trey Turner up at the top. A lot of shortstops moved around, right? Trey Turner was a guy that changed teams. Carlos Correa is a guy that changed teams. Xander Bogaerts is another one. And there's a fourth that's kind of slipping my mind at the moment. But a lot of shortstops moved around. But here's how the first round shaped up. And when we brought this up a couple weeks ago, Turner, Acuna Jr., Ramirez, Julio Rodriguez, Aaron Judge, and Shohei Ohtani, who is a hitter and a pitcher, but you have to make the decision on a Monday because your lineup's lock, whether you want Shohei the hitter for that week or Shohei the pitcher for that week. I think he should be both, but I understand why he isn't, because it would be very beneficial for you or anybody out there to have first overall pick in fantasy baseball draft and have Shohei on their squad because he is the best player in baseball. And you can't tell me he's not otherwise because he is doing absolutely everything. So stop it. Turner won, Acuna won, Ramirez won, Rodriguez won, Judge won, and Shohei. They all have a min pick of 1 over the last 3 weeks, NFBC high stakes league. So this is the first time I can remember in a long time where there's not a clear cut number 1. Of course, we had Mike Trout for 3 or 4 years. He's not even on this board as a top 12 pick. Last year, he wasn't a top 12 pick. He missed a little bit of time, but he still had a fantastic season when he is healthy. If he told me he was going to play 150 games, to me, he should be inside the top 12, even knowing he's not going to steal any bags. He's just that good. But this is the first time I can remember in a long time where there's just no clear-cut number 1. Honestly, for me, I don't know if I go Turner. He still obviously has a lot of speed to offer. It's a good lineup in Philadelphia, whether he's leading off or he's hitting that 2 spot. It is a good lineup. I think if I had the first pick, I would probably go Ronald Acuna Jr. or I would go Julio Rodriguez. I don't think I would go Jose Ramirez. I know third is very thin. He does touch a lot of categories. Still got some speed there. He's a good ball player. I have nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong with going first for him. But Ramirez, I don't think I would do Judge. I don't think he's going to hit 60 bombs again. He'll regress a little bit. The average won't be spectacular. He's not going to swipe any bags. I want some speed. Speed's hard to come by. That's why we're seeing Bobby Witt Jr. here as the third and short eligibility. It kind of looks like Mike Trout, his swing, actually. It reminds me of Mike Trout. He's got some power, got some speed. a little bit of a try. I don't think I can spend that kind of capital on him, but ultimately, I do want some speed in the first round of my draft, and you're not going to get it from Soto, Alvarez, or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And I don't think those guys are fades, but if you are grabbing somebody like a Judge or those heavy hitters towards the end of the first round, you're definitely going to want to attack speed, in the next round or two in your drafts. These are things we're going to talk about on the show. Still a long ways away from fantasy baseball. We'll identify sleepers, do some team previews, talk World Series. We will take care of all the baseball fans out there for sure. We are a multi-sport show here on Mean Streets. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back after the break, and we're going to get into the NFL. Keep her locked. Back in a couple.
At DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bet on nearly any sport imaginable. The NFL, the NBA, college football, college basketball, golf, the NHL, tennis, Major League Baseball, MMA, and more. Download the DK Sportsbook app on iOS and Android operating systems, as well as on your desktops or in mobile browsers. Get the best bonuses using promo code FTN. Remember, the only way to gamble responsibly is to win. PrizePicks is a creative new way to parlay picks based on expected fantasy point production and single stat projections. You pick 2 to 5 players and predict if they'll go over or under their projected fantasy point total or their single stat total. When parlaying the players, the larger your parlay, the better the payout. A 2-pick entry pays 3x. A 3-pick entry pays 5x. A 4-pick entry pays 10x. As a bonus offer, there's a flex play option. This provides an added level of security on your entry where you can decrease your multiplier received if you miss one of your entries but hit on all the others. At FTN, we have PrizePicks coverage for every sport in both article and standalone pick format on our PrizePicks pick tracker. Use promo code FTN for a 100% deposit match on your first deposit of up to $100.
Welcome back in. Mean Streets here. As Daily Handle says, let's go. Oh, baby. The big stage, Mean Streets, under the bright lights. Daily Handle, what'd you think of that college football game last night? Not much of a game. Boys are eating chicken wings on the sidelines. Not at all worried about a TCU comeback. That didn't happen last night. Very lopsided. It wasn't fun, obviously, to watch. I mean, you want to see a competitive football game. And we saw 2 competitive football games leading up. But expanded playoff format, I think we're all here for it when it comes to college football. That game last night was a little bit of a snooze fest and a blowout for Georgia. A couple news items here in the NFL that I wanted to share with you guys. Ryan Poles, GM of the Chicago Bears, did not rule out taking a quarterback. Didn't rule it out. We still have the draft order, the selection here. We can bring up for you guys just in case you missed yesterday's show. And the Chicago Bears do have the first overall pick in this year's NFL draft. The win by the Houston Texans against the Indianapolis Colts took them out of the number 1 spot, and they fired their head coach for a second year in a row. Lovie Smith, see you later. See you later, Lovie. Thanks for everything that you've done. I'd be a little hesitant if I was a coach going to Houston they don't have a lot of assets. They're not going to be good next year. Yeah, maybe they get a franchise quarterback. I don't know. Maybe it's young. Maybe Chicago hangs on and they take, a defensive player. I still think the Bears should be taking calls on Fields. You're taking calls regardless on Fields in the number 1 pick. If you're not going to take Bryce Young, then take some assets. Have a team trade up. Maybe it's the Colts that trade up. Maybe it's Las Vegas who trades up. Maybe the Panthers trade up. There's got to be a team that is interested in trading up to get that number 1 spot to get themselves a franchise quarterback. Maybe the Texans thinking, I don't know what the Texans think. I don't know what they're thinking. Who knows what this organization is thinking? They've made numerous bad trades over the past few years, brutal trades. DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. What the heck was that? I mean, this team has given away draft picks for years. Clearly, there's a disconnect between the coaching staff and the front office. Did they want the Texans to win? Probably not. Lovie Smith didn't care. He said, "Screw you guys. I'm coaching to win this game, and 4th and 20 at the end of the game, we're trying to score a touchdown," and they did. Good on Davis Mills. Good on Davis Mills. Clearly not the answer. A lot of holes for the Texans squad, but got to be really frustrating as a fan of the Texans not to have that number one pick. So we'll see. I think that Chicago is happy with Fields. I think that they roll with him. And like we said yesterday, we've seen teams and quarterbacks especially take a leap forward. It's too early to write him off. It's just too early. Josh Allen comes to mind with Diggs and Josh Brown and Cole Beasley and a change in the offensive coordinator, and Josh Allen took off and Jalen Hurts took off when they got a new coaching regime, and they also brought in AJ Brown and they drafted a guy in Devontae Smith, and now it's one of the better 1-2 punches in football in my opinion. They're very two different wide receivers and they complement each other very well. Chicago, Chase Claypool, they didn't try to do anything. Velus Jones, that was your big draft pick last year, Chicago. Dante Pettis, Equinemius St. Brown, Brian Pringle, like, come on. Chase Claypool, at least they tried, I guess. If I was a Bears fan, I'd rather have pick 33 to take a wide receiver. I know they have a second, but they could do a lot here in this draft, whether it's trading Fields or trading that first overall pick, getting some assets, and they have a lot of cap space as well. They're a team that I think could go out and make a trade for a wide receiver, like maybe an AJ Brown type, a deal that's done on draft day, because there aren't a lot of spectacular wide receiver free agents out there. I saw a list. Maybe I can bring it up in the next block. The most exciting that I saw on the list was like Jacoby Myers. He's okay. He's fine. He'll probably get paid. Like, I don't know if he'll get Christian Kirk money. Is that like the bar now? Like Christian Kirk money, like to just average, above average wide receivers? I don't want to take any shots on the Jags. I saw the Jacksonville Jaguars TikTok account, and they roasted some dude who was he called the Jacksonville Jaguars one of the worst franchises of all time. And it was based around the signing of Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. That guy looks pretty silly today, doesn't he? Because Evan Ingram was fantastic and Christian Kirk was phenomenal as well. And the Jaguars are in a playoff spot, and they won the division. So there's worse organizations out there than the Jacksonville Jaguars, but the Bears can do a solid by bringing in some assets for Justin Fields and surrounding him with some talent before we're judging him. But on that list, there were a few teams, right? The Colts looking for a quarterback, Las Vegas looking for a quarterback. I think Atlanta has one. I think the Eagles won't be taking a quarterback. The Cardinals won't be taking a quarterback. I almost called them the Diamondbacks with baseball in my mind. Seattle could take a quarterback. We'll see what Geno got them in the playoffs, led the league in completion percentage. DK and Tyler were great. Lockett and Metcalf, they were great. I don't think they have a chance to beat the 49ers, but man, if they found a way to beat the 49ers, you got to think that, they'd be comfortable rolling out with Geno again. And Detroit, they may be comfortable with Jared Goff as their quarterback. I know he may not be the quarterback of the future, but he's a decent quarterback in the NFL, and he had a really good campaign and almost brought Detroit to the playoffs. So we'll see. We're a long ways away from the NFL draft, but that's the top 10 in there. And Denver, LA, and New Orleans would have been in the top 10 if they didn't trade their first round picks rather. Other news items, Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Green Bay Packers, says he is willing to give up play calling. And I say, you probably should. You probably should. This team started to hit their stride down the stretch of the season. There's a couple things. When they were healthy as a wide receiver core, like their wide receiver room, like Lazard, Christian Watson couldn't stay healthy. And when Watson got back in the lineup and he started to get more run and more play, you could see his upside. I mean, we loved him on this show. I compared him to Mike Evans. Maybe that's a little unfair, but he's a big body wide receiver. He's got some sneaky speed. He can go up and get it. And I understand that if you hung on with me for a while, maybe you didn't make the playoffs in your fantasy league because I said to stash this guy, but hopefully it worked out for you because he had a really good campaign. But I thought that this team should have ran the ball more. They should have used Aaron Jones a little bit more, and I feel like some of their red zone play calling was really bad. And so I don't think that would be a bad idea to maybe give up play calling. Who knows? Maybe Rodgers isn't a part of the team. I know Jameson Williams asked him for his jersey after the game, and he said, "Nah, kid. I'm going to keep this one." What does it mean? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. I don't see Aaron Rodgers on a new team. I don't see him going off to Las Vegas. I don't see him retiring. I mean, he signed a pretty good contract. I think he's going to be back with Green Bay once all the dust settles and he gets over this loss. I think he'll be back in Green Bay. But he said it himself. I mean, the offense took a major step back. And when you lose a guy like Devontae Adams, you're going to take a major step back because they didn't do anything to replace him. But it looks like they do have a good young wide receiver in Christian Watson. Yesterday, we failed to tell you. We knew that this was coming. We said it for weeks. But Kingsbury fired from the Arizona Cardinals. And Kyler Murray is reportedly going to have a say on the next coach in Arizona, which I think is fair. I also think it's a very risky coaching job because if you're not a believer in Kyler Murray, you may be one and done. Maybe not one and done. Maybe it's a 3 or 4 year thing, but I don't think the organization is going to move off Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray seems to be their guy. They extended him. So if you're a coach that doesn't believe in Kyler Murray, then maybe you're looking for another job. I believe in Kyler. I think he's a good quarterback. You know, from a real life standpoint, I think he's a little tiny, but he's very mobile. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's still learning the position. Uh, there was a lot of things last year, like a couple, decisions that there was a game in Philadelphia, I remember, where he spiked it. And remember, there was like a hurry up and they were coming back in the game and they looked like they were going to tie. And then it was 4th and 1 and he spiked it. It's just like, whoa, he was unaware of the situation. I know a lot has been made in Kyler and having this in his contract, incentives not to play, I don't think he actually had it in his contract not to play video games, but he had it in his contract to like certain amount of film that he had to watch. But also I think that was blown out of proportion. It was crazy that it was leaked. It was a bad look for Kyler, but I think that's in a lot of quarterbacks contracts, at least younger quarterbacks. Tyler, Deontay Johnson set the record for the most targets without a touchdown, 147. Original record was 109. I did see that yesterday. He had a 2-point conversion. Does that count? It doesn't. But that was the closest he had to getting a touchdown this season. I want to say that he finished inside the top 10 in targets. I know he was like number 2 or number 3 last season in targets, right? Let's do a little quick look. He's going to be he was a full-on fade for us on this show, and I don't know. I think it was more so like the Steelers. I didn't really believe in their offense, but Kenny Pickett showed me some things down the stretch. I think he's going to be a good quarterback in the league, but next year I would rather have Pickens than Deontay Johnson. I think Deontay Johnson is a good wide receiver. I think, certainly some issues with drops over the course of his career. No touchdowns is certainly alarming. Yeah, 147 targets. Justin Jefferson, number 1, $184. Devontae, 180. Tyreek, 170. CeeDee Lamb, 156. Stephon Diggs, 154. Garrett Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, 147. Deontay Johnson tied with him, 147. Garrett Wilson had a $147. He had 17 targets last week in 4 games with Joe Flacco. 8 targets, 14, 11, and 17. And this was another note that I wanted to bring up to you guys since we're on the New York Jets, was the tweet that I saw from Antoine V. Staley. He covers the Jets for the New York Daily News. Zach Wilson said he is willing to compete with a veteran if it comes to that, said he would, quote, make his life hell if the Jets do decide to bring in a veteran quarterback. What's the deal with this kid? It's just, I know maybe he's joking and he's thinking, you can bring in a veteran quarterback all you want. I will make his life hell because I think what he is thinking is he's going to try. Obviously, he's going to be competitive. He's going to be motivated to win that job. He's going to be, accurate and on point in practice, where he's going to make the coaching decision tough for the staff on who's going to be the starting quarterback. But just the way that he says certain things, it just kind of comes across the wrong way. I myself didn't love the quote, but I understand where he's coming from. But like, it just seems like maybe you go about it a different way. If they decide to bring in a veteran quarterback, I will certainly be competitive. I'm going to try really hard to take that job, and maybe I'll learn a thing or two from the veteran, and maybe we can work together as a team. It's all about the Jets winning. But some people are just not like that. Some people are come across a little spoiled. They've been entitled, and I know now I feel like I'm a bad person taking shots at Zach Wilson, but I didn't really like the quote from him. And they should bring in a veteran quarterback. And Zach Wilson, and when he was playing, Garrett Wilson did not have good games. He did not have good numbers. He wasn't targeted. Him and Elijah Moore had things to say this season as well. I think the Jets would be better off looking to bring in a veteran quarterback like Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is a capable quarterback, and I think he would look really good with the New York Jets. We're going to take another break. We're going to dive into the football matchups. We also have the season end rankings, top 24 wide receivers, top 12 quarterbacks, top 12 tight ends, top 24 running backs as well. I wanted to share with you guys, and hopefully we can learn a thing or two from, where these guys finish and where they'll fall in drafts next year as well. So a lot of football talk, and still to come, some NHL picks and props here on Mean Streets. Keep her locked. Welcome back in. You're watching Main Streets Live on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you of FTN. Mark Carr in the house, and said the only one that had good numbers when Wilson was playing was Breece Hall. And Breece Hall was fantastic. I don't know, Tyler, if you have the way too early running back rankings handy, but I think I had Breece Hall in my top 10. I think I may have to make a couple adjustments to that. Of course, it's way too early, right? Way too early rankings. CMC, in my opinion, is the clear-cut number one. I know last week when we brought this up, there was a question about Elijah Mitchell, and Elijah Mitchell had 2 touchdowns. We had Elijah Mitchell for 2 touchdowns in the FTN Bet Tracker last week. I had him in there at 13-1. I was pretty happy with that call. We had a great week 18. I hope it carries over, guys. I really do, because I know it's been an up and down season in the NFL, and I just want to provide some winners for some peeps. But CMC is just, man, he just the perfect fit. The perfect fit in San Fran in this offense. An unbelievable run, 10 touchdowns in 10 games. He's on top of the world again, CMC. Austin Eckler for me, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. So Chubb, I have Chubb probably ranked a little bit too high. You know what? I like it. I like it. I know other people are not going to like it. And Nick Chubb last year, people were making excuses for it. They always say the same thing every year. Well, he doesn't catch any passes, so I can't draft him in the first round, or he can't be my RB1. Man, when we did a draft at FTN, he fell to the fourth round. The fourth round. We did the draft early in June or July, but I remember Marshall took him in the fourth round, and I thought to myself, it may be the biggest steal in all of fantasy. Again, among the leaders in rushing yards. He caught 3 passes last week. He's a guy that averaged over 80 rushing yards per game with Deshaun Watson. It's a better quarterback. I know Watson didn't look good, but he hadn't played football in a long time. Maybe he's got all the bad karma coming his way and he won't be a great quarterback. I think he's an overrated quarterback. I have no problem telling you that. I think that Deshaun Watson's an overrated quarterback. I really do believe he's overrated, but he is better than what they've rolled out over the last, 25 years, 20 years for sure. But Chubb, maybe he's a guy that catches passes. 3 passes he caught last week. 1 was a receiving touchdown. Kareem Hunt's an unrestricted free agent. Dearness Johnson, unrestricted free agent. And Derrick Henry just had a career season in terms of nobody ever talks about Derrick Henry like, oh, I'm not taking him. I guess some people do, is like tread on the tires. He doesn't catch any passes, but we saw his role change, especially this season, a career high in terms of receiving yards, catches. We talked about his receiving yard prop every single week on this show, 14.5 last week. The guy had multiple games with over 30 receiving yards. He was more involved in the offense. Of course, losing A.J. Brown and not having weapons inside the offense had a lot to do with that, but they learned to get the ball in this guy's hands, whether it's a screen pass. I think the same thing applies here with Nick Chubb. He can catch. I remember watching him in his rookie campaign live in Cleveland, First Energy Center. He had like a 3 or 4 catch game. It's like, wow, this guy's awesome. And then they brought in Kareem Hunt and he took all the catches away. But Nick Chubb, even if he falls into 30 catches this year, that's tremendous to go from 20 to 30 in a full PPR league. He won't be a top 5 back for me, but in a half point setting, I'm willing to kind of have him, when it's all said and done, I probably have him worst case at 7. I could see my putting Taylor ahead of him and Josh Jacobs ahead of him. Maybe I'm a little unfair with Josh Jacobs, unrestricted free agent. We'll see where he lands. We'll see what the quarterback situation is in Las Vegas. To me, that means a lot. If it's going to be a rookie or a mediocre quarterback, he may not be as efficient. This offense may not be as efficient, but ultimately the guy's a stud. So I feel like whether he's 5, 6, 7, or 8 or 9, he's worthy of being a top 10 running back. And he clearly is the rushing leader in the NFL. He may be a little bit higher on this list, but yeah, Breece Hall, according to reports, he's ahead of schedule. That's actually from Breece Hall's mouth himself, talked about how he's ahead of schedule. And I saw him on Twitter last night as underdog_NFL tweeted the rookie running back leaders. Kenneth Walker, 1,050 rushing yards. How about our guy, Tyler Algier? Had to play the long game with Tyler Algier, one of our favorite late round picks and a great stash. Took a little bit of time, but we thought it would happen. He'd overtake that backfield, and he did. And he finished second among rookie running backs in rushing yards with 1,035. Dameon Pierce, also our guy. Those were our 2 favorite rookie running backs to draft in the middle of the summer. One we were getting in round 9 in Pierce, and we were getting round 10 in Tyler Algier. That's before all the news came out about Marlon Mack getting released, and you lost all that value. But if you drafted early, you had a lot of shares of Dameon Pierce. 939 rushing yards, definitely would have led the NFL in rushing if he didn't get hurt. Or maybe it was Breece Hall, because he quote retweeted this tweet from underdog_NFL and said, "Y'all lucky I ain't play the whole season," because Breece Hall had 463 rushing yards, Rachaad White 481, James Cook 507, Brian Robinson Jr. 797, Isaiah Pacheco 830. Out of all those rookie running backs, Walker, you saw, I have him as a top 12 guy. Algier is going to be just outside my top 12. Dameon Pierce is going to be just outside my top 12. Brian Robinson Jr. also going to be a strong, I think, RB2 for people next year. James Cook, I think, is going to be the interesting running back, right? Linked to a great offense in Buffalo, has shown us a lot here over the last few weeks of the season. Devin Singletary put the ball on the ground again last week, also is an unrestricted free agent. James Cook is going to be one of those guys that you can probably get late RB2, and I think he's going to be a strong RB2. I really do. The touchdowns are hard to predict, especially on this Bills offense when you have a rushing quarterback in Josh Allen. But ultimately, I do believe that this is going to be a really nice piece in drafts next year. The Bills have always wanted that pass-catching running back. J. McKissick they tried to bring in, didn't really work out. Then they draft Dalvin Cook's brother, James, here in the second round. And I think next year he is going to break out. I could see him getting over 1,000 yards in what will be still a top offense in Buffalo. So, yeah, Breece Hall in the news. Breece Hall, top 12 running back for me next year. And a lot of those rookies, too, that broke out. Kenneth Walker, Ramondre in his second year broke out. Love him. Maybe a bell cow role for Ramondre Stevenson next year. I know Bill Belichick and company, they like to have multiple running backs on the Patriots squad. That may be the case next year. I don't think Damian Harris will be brought back. If he is, it'll be on the cheap. And then I'll have some concerns about the bell cow role from Ramondre, but he showed to me, elusive, yards after contact, the catches. I think he was third among running backs in catches, led his team in catches, multiple times. And Jacoby Myers is that wide receiver free agent that probably is out the door. So maybe another weak wide receiver room in New England next year. We're going to break. I swear we'll get into tonight's games, but I have a couple other things I wanted to share with you on the other side of the break as well. So we'll be back in a couple.
I can't say enough about what we've got going on over at ftnbets.com.
At FTN Bets, your bankroll can be profitable. With the FTN Bet Tracker, you can tell your favorite experts across all sports, including the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball.
Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. I'm your host, Chris Meaney.
And with our premium content, you can take your bets to the next level. Only $49.99 a month. Use the tools the pros use at FTN. Our betting models run over 100,000 simulations of every game, with sides and totals in the NFL, the NBA, and more. Use the home run predictor to see who'll hit a bomb deep. Our NFL player projections will make you a DFS king. And the FTN Prop Shop always finds the best odds for your player props. All tools, projections, and models are powered by FTN data.
Welcome back. And I wanted to share, since I brought it up a couple of times, the unrestricted wide receivers. And we'll get into this, I think, at another time when the NFL starts to slow down and we're down to like four teams or so. And into the conference championship games, we can start to look at like draft players, that are going to be drafted and profiles and what it means for dynasty leagues and things like that. Of course, I'd like to know the landing spot of some of these players is obviously significant, but we will certainly address free agency. And there's a lot of marquee running backs, right? In that list that we showed earlier, like Saquon's unrestricted, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard, Dave Montgomery. There's a lot of really Alexander Madison, like could be on a new team. And is he good enough to be a starting running back? I think we'll find out. In Minnesota, when there's no Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison's put up massive numbers over the last 2 or 3 seasons, right? So interesting running backs across the board. Same can be said for wide receivers. I think the marquee wide receiver free agent is Jacoby Myers. Now, I don't want to take too many shots at Jacoby Myers. Last year he didn't score any touchdowns. This year he scored some touchdowns. He's a really good wide receiver. He had a beautiful touchdown catch over the weekend with the tippy toes, the toes that he kept in the end zone. He's a good wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe he's a 1, but he'd be a nice 2 on a team. Juju Smith-Schuster is an unrestricted free agent. I don't know if they bring him back. It felt like it was like a 1-year thing. It was interesting that the Chiefs decided to give the money and the years to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and they brought in Kadarius Toney. How good did Kadarius Toney look last week? He looked great. He's good. He's really good. It's always just been about health. I think the Giants were just sick of it, the health and things like that. And just inside an offense with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, he may get overdrafted next year. People are going to be all over him, but man, you saw like a couple carries that he had carries. One carry he had for a touchdown. Just he's so agile. Anyways, I don't know if they bring back Juju. I think it's like Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, maybe Sky Moore, right? Maybe Sky Moore has a larger role this year. Juju could be on a new team. We'll see. Maybe he balls out in the playoffs and they want to bring him back. Darius Slayton is another guy. Again, really not super exciting. Has had some moments with Daniel Jones and company. Certainly the Giants are lacking wide receivers, but I don't know if Darius Slayton is a guy that they bring back. DJ Chark is certainly out the door, right, with Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, it's very, very small sample size, but he's done some great things already in the NFL. And that touchdown that came back, it was just, you saw the explosiveness against the Packers, a little bit of a crossing route. And he's gone. Jameson with Amon-Ra. It's a lot going on in Detroit that I like. DJ Chark is probably on a new team. Eyelash in the eye, excuse me for that. Alan Lazard is unrestricted free agent. Marvin Jones, Mecole Hardman, another Chief, Jarvis Landry. Like, these are not appealing names, right? It's very underwhelming. You may see some massive trades in the NFL in terms of wide receivers getting shipped off to other teams. Other notable wide receivers, the old vets and AJ Green and Julio Jones. These guys don't have much to offer. Matt Collins, DeAndre Carter, Noah Brown, Aguilar, Paris Campbell. So it's a pretty thin wide receiver core, isn't it? It's very, very thin. Wide receiver free agent core is what I was going for there. Speaking of wide receivers, I saw just now, it sounds like Mike Williams is fine and he's going to return to practice this week. Brendan Staley said Mike Williams' MRI showed no fracture or muscle injury in his back. He has a contusion, says Staley, and he expects Williams to return to practice this week. So he dodged a bullet there, Staley. Imagine not having that guy for a playoff run because he played him in a meaningless football game. Let's bring up that Jags. We do have the Jags board, I think, just to give you guys a little bit of a peek at the odds and the total here. 47.5. Jacksonville, I've seen from 2.5 to 1 to 1.5. The Chargers rather have always been favorites here in this spot. We've seen this before, the team that kind of limps into the playoffs in a bad division and, get that home game and they win. Seattle certainly comes to mind as a team that did that a few years ago against the Saints and the big Marshawn Lynch run. This is a tough game to call because I really like Jacksonville and they beat them in week 3, 38-10. A lot has changed since then. Lawrence had the 3 touchdowns. James Robinson ran all over them. ETN is now the man in the backfield, and he's better than James Robinson. So you got an upgrade here at the running back position since these two teams played. And the Chargers team that can't stop the run, I think this is going to be high scoring. I think my favorite play from that game is the over. I think both quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence had 3 passing touchdowns. I think this is going to be a team in Jacksonville that is going to lean on the run a little bit here. But on the other side, and Justin Herbert with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler to the backfield, they're going to be able to score some points. So I feel like this is like going to be a fun game. It could be like a 24-23 that gets us right to that number. We could see some overtime in this game. I think we'll see some points scored. I would take the over on the 1.5 passing touchdowns for both quarterbacks, and we'll get some props as we get later on into the week when they do surface. But right now, I have a slight lean to the Chargers. I would like to see a Final Four of Kansas City and the LA Chargers, and then Buffalo and Cincy. I want that Buffalo and Cincy game. And I didn't talk about this yesterday, but I still get chills watching the Nyheim Hines return. How crazy was that? Josh Allen talking about fate and just how spiritual it was and how he said he had never been a part of a touchdown that had meant that much to him and that had meant that much to his team. And I'm sure you guys saw it by now, but the first play of the game, a return touchdown for Nyheim Hines. He did it twice in that game. And then after the game, they said that there hadn't been a return touchdown to start a game in 3 years and 3 months. Just so happens to be Damar Hamlin's number. It just I don't know. I believe in that stuff. Call me silly, call me foolish. I believe in things like that. And it's pretty freaky, man. It really is. 5 years, $100 extension for Roquan Smith. Yeah, nice get. Chicago just kind of gave him up. A nice get for the Ravens. It's pretty good there. Prime Feinberg play. Jags cover, Chargers win. Feinberg's going to be on edge, man. I can't imagine. He was probably on edge watching that game and seeing all the injuries happen. But I'm going to lean with the Chargers, but I would not be shocked if Jacksonville won that game. I would not shock me at all with the way that the Chargers find a way to lose football games, and Jacksonville, the way that they're playing, they're loose, the home game here, and Trevor Lawrence playing with a lot of confidence, and Doug Peterson. I give the benefit of the doubt to Doug Peterson over Staley as a head coach. It should be a really fun game, and it really should be good. Yeah, Mark, 3-year, 3-month Hamlin number. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's absolutely bonkers that he was with them on that play. There's no question in my mind. Another break, a little bit more football talk here on Mean Streets. Welcome back in. I was going to preview the Niners and the Seahawks. I'm going to save that for tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a day where we really hammer home all the picks, all the totals. I have a pretty good feeling of what way I'm leaning. There's a couple I'm still on the fence. So I think tomorrow we'll hammer that home. I'm going to share my playoff bracket with you guys. And I'm going to share like my top 20 players if you're playing in like a one and done or a fantasy football playoff league. So I want to share my top rankings with you guys. And we will have Brian Cook on Thursday as per usual. And we got some guests covering some teams. So we'll dive into some of these matchups a little bit larger in the week. I want to just share with you guys just the end of the season rankings. So I know we've done a little bit of this, and I think we'll rapid fire through some of this, Tyler. But if you want to start at the quarterback position, I think we already did quarterbacks, but I wanted to share with you guys. This does not include week 18. This is where they have finished. So Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, your top three quarterbacks. And to me, that is a tier. Next year, that's a tier of its own. Those three guys. The next tier after that, for me, may just be Joe Burrow alone. I don't think Joe Burrow is quite there because he doesn't have that rushing floor as Allen and Hurts have. Tier 1 would be Mahomes, Allen, Hurts. Maybe tier 2 is Burrow. Then tier 3 would be Fields. I'd put Lamar Jackson in this tier as well, who had, if in terms of points per game, he would be right there with Fields as quarterback 5, quarterback 6. And then after that tier, Trevor Lawrence will be there for me. Daniel Jones is always going to be underrated in terms of fantasy. Nobody's ever going to draft him as a top 10 quarterback. This is just an example every year. Like, you want the alpha guys, but at the top, it's going to cost you. It may cost you a solid running back or a wide receiver. But after that, I mean, you can get Lawrence. Last year, you got Lawrence and Fields outside the top 15 at the quarterback position. Kirk Cousins outside the top 10. Geno Smith and Jared Goff. These guys were like late round flyers in super flex leagues. Tom Brady, finishes there as the strong finish. Certainly in week 17 is a big finish. This guy, I'm not totally interested in him from a fantasy standpoint, even if he goes to Las Vegas. I think it's okay, but I want a rushing quarterback. or I'll wait it out on like that next breakout quarterback. You're going to get some value there with Justin Herbert. Let's go over to running backs and take a look at the top. We'll go into the top 24 just quickly here on the 12. So these guys, like maybe, and again, Chubb, right there again. Pollard's probably a guy that doesn't finish here inside the top 10 unless he's a running back in Miami and it's his backfield. It'll be interesting to see where he finishes. Jamal Williams, a great campaign, broke Barry Sanders' record for the most touchdowns in Detroit, led the NFL in rushing touchdowns as well. He's not going to be a top 12 back next year. Miles Sanders could be on a new team. He may not be a top 12, and I don't believe I'll have Aaron Jones. In fact, you saw it earlier, not as a top 12 running back for me. Let's dig deeper. Here we are, RB2s for the 2022 NFL fantasy season. Joe Mixon. A lot of touchdowns, not super efficient, but that's probably where I'll have him ranked 12, 13, 14, in around there. Rather have him as my RB2 as my RB1. Probably going to address wide receivers early, like I do most times anyways. Najee Harris, right? Nice finish from Najee Harris down the stretch of the season. I would never have imagined he finished as a top 15 running back. Most of the season, he was like RB3 territory, but a great finish. And I think it changed when they made the quarterback change. When they got Pickens in there and they started to move the ball, Pickens as a player, he's going to be phenomenal. And then Leonard Fournette had a nice finish. Travis Etienne probably would have finished as a top 12 running back if he didn't have the injury and he overtook the backfield when they traded James Robinson. James Conner, not efficient over the past couple of years, but certainly a lot of the touches and has been very touchdown dependent over the past 2 years. Zeke, say what you want about Zeke, but again, another solid year from him, even dealing with a split backfield, a lot of touchdowns for Zeke, which did help some of his numbers here, finishing as a low end RB2. And that's where he was, in terms of the industry and where these ADP was, that's really where he was. Kenneth Walker missed a bit of time, early on in the season, missed a couple weeks there in the later part of the season, but a really strong finish. And to me, as a top 12 running back next year, I really like this guy as a running back. And I think, is a bell cow written all over him. Honestly, I think he can catch some passes too. I know he's not a big player in the receiving game, but I think he can catch 20 plus passes next year. Alvin Kamara, bust written all over him. Maybe his suspension next year. Didn't use him properly. Taysom Hill in there stealing touches. A down year from Kamara. Just had to, as a dynasty owner, I was certainly frustrated with his usage. I didn't have any shares in a redraft, and I probably won't next year either, especially if Taysom Hill is in the picture at the quarterback position. But at the same time, you are going to get a discount on Alvin Kamara. How about Jerick McKinnon? Another receiving touchdown from him last week. He won't be inside here, but we did have him as PPR gold in the offseason as a guy that you could take a flyer on, and he looked amazing. And I think he's going to have a great playoff for the Chiefs as well. Montgomery could be on a new team. Singletary could be on a new team. And I can already hear people now talking about DeAndre Swift as a top 12 running back again next year. I get it. If he had a lot of the goal line work, maybe he finishes a top 12 back, but ultimately, I don't think he's built for like 20 touches per game on the ground. I think he's very explosive. I think he's a good running back. I really do. I think Detroit is a great offensive line. Maybe he gets more goal line touches next year. Maybe Jamal Williams is still there getting all the goal line touches, right? But certainly explosive, more value in a PPR league, but I won't fall for him going in the first round. Not again. I won't do it. And unfortunately for him, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. I don't want to. He could have a full season next year. He could, but that's the knock. Health has been a concern, and is certainly a concern of mine. So those are your top 12, top 24 running backs. We'll do wide receivers and tight ends another day. I get some NHL picks and props around out Mean Streets. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back in. Several games on the NHL schedule tonight. In fact, 10. Dangle by Sally coming your way on Game Plus Network. Also can be caught on our FTN Network YouTube page. Eric Young and myself rolled through all 10 games, called some goals, some shot props, some sides, some totals, a little bit of fantasy hockey advice that's also available on iTunes and Spotify. And of course, a friendly reminder to ftnbets.com/free for all the picks across all sports. If you haven't yet signed up for a free 3-day trial, do so by visiting ftnbets.com/free. So for tonight, there's a lot of different ways to go. And I never thought I would lead here with Mikael Backlund, but in fact, I am leading here with Mikael Backlund, a third liner for the Calgary Flames, averaging a little bit more ice time this season than last season, gets a little bit of time on the power play, does play in all situations. He has cleared this number, 2.5 shots, -107 over at Bet Rivers. In 8 of his last 9 games, one game that he didn't, he was stuck on 2. He's got 15 shots on goal over his last 3 games. He may not get to any points tonight, but I am hoping that he gets 3 shots for us this evening. A matchup against the St. Louis Blues. Over the last 4 weeks, according to Natural Stat Trick, at 5-5 per 60, the Blues are inside the top 10 in shot attempts allowed. They are without their best defensive forward and Ryan O'Reilly. He's not going to play tonight. Vladimir Tarasenko as well. The Blues are shorthanded, not getting a lot of goaltending either, but we're just looking for Mikael Backlund over 2.5 shots, -107 over at Bet Rivers. A couple other plays that I like here for this evening. As you see on the board, Thomas Hertl over 2.5 shots plus money. I don't know what it is with Thomas Hertl. I love this guy. Plus money. I'm always going to jump on it, especially in a matchup against Arizona. He played the Coyotes on December 13th. It was a 3-2 win for San Jose. He had a goal and he had 4 shots. He's cleared 2.5 shots in 3 straight games and 7 of his past 9 games. Matt Boldy's cleared 2.5 shots in 3 straight games. In fact, he's had 4 shots in each of his last 3 games. No Matt Zuccarello tonight. And Boldy's been up on that top line with Zuccarello's sideline. We saw 25 minutes from Matt Boldy in his last game. He's played 44 minutes in his last 2 hockey games. Max Pacioretty, plus 136. I wanted to give a plus money play here, 3.5. It's a bit of a tougher spot against New Jersey, but he's just a volume shooter. 15 shot attempts in his first 2 games with the Hurricanes. 8 shots on goal, 2 goals. He scored twice in his last game. Jack Hughes is 3.5 over at Bet Rivers. Other books have him at 4.5. I wouldn't take the 4.5. I'd take the 3.5 if you can get it. But Max Pacioretty plus 136 just takes a couple power plays for this guy. I love the chemistry between him, Sebastian Aho, and Seth Jarvis early on in his Hurricane debut. Matty Bernard's got goals in 4 straight games, got 7 points over that span. They are the 3rd highest scoring team in the NHL up against the highest scoring team in the NHL in Buffalo. I like the over between the Sabres and the Kraken. And I like riding Matty Bernard's, Jordan Eberle, and Andre Burakovsky again for points. They were good for us last night. And then Tyler Seguin for a point. No Rupe Hintz. Seguin's going to play on that top line. Actually like Seguin quite a bit. Plus 105 for a point, plus 250 for an assist, and plus 340 for a goal tonight on that top line with Pavelski and with Jason Robertson. And on the way out here, a couple of shot prop parlays for you guys. These are some guys that I like that are juiced. Nathan McKinnon over 4.5, Jake Gensel over 2.5. I like Jake Gensel to score tonight. I like him plus 150 for a 2-point edge against the leaky Vancouver Canucks, and Jason Robertson over 3.5 shots. And then Braden Point in there for over 2.5 shots. And that will play plus 185, a great spot against the Blue Jackets tonight. Other than that, you're on your own. Check out ftnbets.com for the latest. Good luck on the ice. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.